thank you again for this coming on today. I
Not
can't
at
thank
all.
you enough. I'm
It's my
I'm
pleasure.
I'm grateful, and I your content is spectacular, and it's just something I've been wanting to do for a while. I know our schedules kind of went back and forth for a while, but I'm glad to have you here.
Yeah.
Um, so I thought it would be appropriate. One of the reasons that attracted me to your stories was the way you presented those and the way that you really started each story and finished it. But what I'd like you to chat to me about is a little bit about your past history in your career, and then
Mm.
what led you to storytelling.
Yeah. I'd be happy to talk about that.
Thanks.
Shall I launch right in?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I spent almost 30 years in advertising.
Mhm.
And when I started out, I was in account service. So my job was to kind of, manage the accounts. But I always coveted the creative life of the people that did the advertising themselves. I had a certain amount of talent, but not enough so that I could really make a huge mark. And what I discovered was one of those ancillary skills. It's a little bit like going onto a football team as a tight end, only to discover that you're a really good punter. And
I get
so
that.
so what I wound up doing was I was pretty good at describing the concepts. The thing was in old timey advertising, when you had to sell, say, Anheuser-Busch on doing a Super Bowl commercial, they were going to invest a tremendous amount of money. And there is a giant gap between a script and a finished commercial. And what they needed to do is if they're going to invest in something, they have to be able to see it. They have to see it in their minds. And
Hmm.
so I had a kind of skill for that. And I was often the one who was given the task of going in and presenting the creative ideas to the client with trying to create in their minds enough of a vivid picture that they would understand what would happen. The crazy
Right.
thing about that is that in a kind of perverse way, what I was really doing was radio commercials to sell TV commercials.
That's a great way to look at it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
was I was trying to create a theater of the mind. But
Yeah.
what happened was that, just as with everything, if you do it for the 10,000 hours, you get so good at it that you forget what you've learned. You don't. It's
Yeah.
almost difficult to teach it to somebody
Right.
because you don't even know what you know. You don't know the scope and breadth, and why this pause is important and why that choice of words matters. And but I always did one thing that I had learned from experience was it has to be clear what you want them to think and what you want them to do. It
Right.
must be clear what you want them to do. And at the end of all of the tales I tell, there's always a moral. I mean, it's just or like an explicit, this is what this all adds up to.
Yeah.
And what if you were to pile them all into a single article, what all of those things add up to is we're not as divided as you think we are.
Yes.
People are better than they are being portrayed. And
Yeah.
if you see the good, if you search for the goodness in people, you will find it. And obviously there are exceptions, I'm sorry to say.
Sure. Sure.
But
Yeah. And I hear that in your stories because the way, but you're able to compartmentalize and take those stories and break down the important parts in, some of your content is a minute, some of them are 3 minutes, but still to tell a story like that in 3 minutes, you have to be so concise on your words and delivering the message with empathy at the end. And so that's the one thing I pick up on is the empathy at the end and trying to convey to the listener here's here's what we're trying to say, here's what I'm trying to say to you, what the message was. Like that story that you shared about you and your friend at the coffee shop and the waitress, I
mhm,
mean that
yeah,
I have sent that video to more than 10 people without question. It's just one of it's just so spectacular that I said this is how you tell a story. And it's a great that's something I if I were a teacher I would use to show my students.
oh, right on. There's
Yeah.
there's a the particular reason I love that story so much is it's and you'll see this in the comments that I will get, say on TikTok or Instagram, is
Mhm.
that people will say, "Oh yeah, God, wouldn't that be wonderful that if you really came into a chunk of money, like what more fun could there possibly be on earth than to go around to deserving people and showing them a little a little
Yeah.
largesse? I
Right.
mean, how cool would that be? That really is the human instinct. When people
Absolutely.
when people find that they get favored, they love to spread it around. It's kind of a shame that there is such a thing as a gated community. I mean, I understand why there are such things because
Right.
you want to feel safe and secure. But unfortunately, what happens is
Yeah.
when you distance yourself from the people that you used to ride the subway with or walk along this, that's one of the things I love so much about Manhattan is I used to ride the subway and I used to walk the streets all the time. And you are in quite a little melting pot of rich, poor, black, white, you know, Hasidic Jew and
Yeah.
Mormon and
Exactly.
atheist, everything in between. And so what happens is when you are in a place like that, you are reminded all the time in such a way that you never even have to think about it, that there are lots of different people in the world and there are lots of different economic success rates. And that's a good thing that we're all aware of one another.
True.
When you get to be of too many means and you can separate yourself from the rest of humanity, you're the one that loses.
Yeah.
You've lost touch with the people who could benefit from your intelligence and your charisma and your ability to gin up, a fortune.
Absolutely. How long were you in New York City for?
8 years, and I
From
loved it.
what
I was I was from
90s?
uh, no, I got back I was lived in Hong Kong for 2 years, got back in 2000, lived in LA for 4 years, and then from 2004 to 2012, I was in New York, live
Oh,
in New
that's
Jersey.
awesome. And then
Yeah.
you came back to California.
Yeah. Back in LA now.
Okay, very cool. What part of LA?
A place called Rancho Palos Verdes.
Oh,
So
the tough streets of Rancho Palos
yeah,
Verdes.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of crime.
No, right. Know that very well. Hey,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. What, around when did your social media start to blow up a little bit? Was it pre-COVID or after COVID?
It was post COVID. And
Post-COVID.
I shouldn't put it that way. It was mid COVID. What happened was,
Okay.
um, uh, right. I used to be in the live events business, working for a very, very good company. And what happened was COVID absolutely shut down any kind of big live event like an auto show and so on, the things where
Yeah.
we used to make our money. So, like a lot of people in live events, I got laid off, and I was lucky to have joined a small startup of guys that I used to know back in Silicon Valley, and we started a company that would supply technical labor to Silicon Valley companies, and we didn't have any money for advertising, so my sort of marketing plan was to actually just do those videos, and as it happened, because when you're first starting out, you don't have a broad portfolio of things you can talk about that you do. You just send
Right.
out, generalized messages. Hey, this is our philosophy. This is what it's like to work with us. This is who we are. And so I would draw upon stories from my own life in order to tell these tales about this is
Yeah.
if you worked with us, this is the people that are behind the name. And my little girl said, Pop, I think those are good enough that you could put them on TikTok or YouTube. I think there's something to them. And so we put a couple of them on there, and this was at her suggestion. We were literally sitting in a diner at having some breakfast. She posted the first one to TikTok,
Uh-huh.
and about 20 minutes later, she says to me, "I think you've gone viral." And I'm saying,
No
"Ooh,
way.
ooh, what
That's
does that
cool.
mean?" She says, we've only been here 20 minutes. This thing has 100,000 hits. I went,
Wow.
"What?" And that was one of the more popular ones. It just took off so very early in the race. We started getting the
The
million,
feedback.
two
Yeah.
million, 3 million views, and then 5 million
Yeah.
views. But that was, I have to say, that was sort of early TikTok, and it
Yeah.
was easy. It was easier to get a runaway hit then, and
Yeah.
so
Things
I've had
have
a
changed.
yeah. But you know what? It's I still have my small tribe, about a quarter of a
Yeah.
million followers, and it's just fun to be there with them and to send out these messages. I'm posting one tomorrow that I'm really quite fond of. It's about
Okay.
it's about a restaurant in Japan called the Restaurant of Mistaken Orders. And
Yeah.
what the founder did was he had visited a home where people with memory loss, people that were suffering from dementia, seniors
Right.
were living. kind of, you might say, sequestered from society. And he found that kind of heartbreaking, that they had been living in isolation when, that's no good. That sends them into a spiral.
Right.
And so he determined that he would make them the wait staff at his restaurant. And everybody was just going to have to accept that
Really.
40% of the time they were going to get the order wrong.
And this is a true story.
Yeah, for real. It was, yeah,
Oh,
it's a real
Jesus.
place. And it was a hit because the way that they said it was, they go, 37% of the orders are wrong and 100% of the people are happy.
Oh my God, that is fantastic.
It is
That is
fantastic.
fantastic.
I
That is
love that.
great.
It's a great story.
That,
It's exactly the kind of thing I look for, because just think about it for a minute. Uh,
yeah,
think about it for a minute, Doc, because here's what's going on. The
right,
people that are serving, they're doing their level best. Some
right.
of them started out embarrassed, but then eventually they really warm up to it and they don't so much care anymore. And the
Hmm.
reason they're so happy about it is they can see on the faces of the people that they're serving that those people are thrilled. And people will order and the wrong food comes and they'll go, well, it's
Yeah.
kismet. Whatever they served me was what I was supposed to have. And sometimes they go, hey, you know what? This is better than what I would have been served. And sometimes
Right,
they just, but everybody leaves feeling so wonderful because they know in their hearts, this is a good thing. This is a good thing.
right.
Make sure everybody's enjoying themselves. And just picture the environment, picture the warmth and the togetherness, because a lot of times in a restaurant, wow, people really throw their weight around, they get upset
Hmm.
about this or
Yeah,
that, or, the amuse bouche wasn't good enough, or the creme brulee hasn't been appropriately toasted. And you
yeah.
just go, you're not enjoying it. Why are you not enjoying it? In a restaurant like that, just the experience is shared by all. And, you can look over at another table, perfect strangers, and you can
Yeah,
have fun laughing and talking with them. What did you get? What did they
right.
get? Did you get some? What did they serve you? I mean, think about how much fun that is. I just love
Hmm.
that.
That's
That's
great. That's a great perspective. Absolutely. What was your experience like at Budweiser in the advertising department there?
okay. Now, I wasn't in Bud's advertising department. I was working for a small agency in Laguna Beach called Open Minds, and we used to pitch
Oh,
concepts to
okay. Got it.
to August Bush the Fourth at the Beverly Hills Hotel poolside, which,
Got it.
oh my Lord, that was an experience. That was great fun. And but we made our occasional appearances in the St. Louis headquarters and had a chance to interact with their marketing people. There was a guy who was in charge of the marketing department at the time, the VP of marketing. His name was Bob Lackey, and
Uh-huh.
Bob had a absolutely Midas touch. He knew. It's very rare when you meet somebody who knows a good idea when they hear it, but he really seemed to have that bone. He really should have been running a movie studio, because
Yeah.
Bob Lackey had a knack for knowing what was going to be a hit. And I would say to him, I go, Bob, how do you know? You pick so many winners. How do you know this? And he goes, you're overestimating my strength. I go by what you call a mosaic strategy, which is I
Really.
don't I don't overthink it. If I like it, we run it. And if people glom onto it, then we do a sequel.
Oh,
We'll
really?
we'll do 2 and 3 and 4 versions of it. He goes, and if it's as much as I love it, if it doesn't hit, it's gone. So he goes, I'm willing to try. And that was a great strength. Somebody who was willing to, hey, that made me laugh, so we're going to give it a try. But I want to do recall one thing that I thought was fantastic, visiting the Anheuser-Busch headquarters in St. Louis. And that
Yeah.
was when you walk in, on the side of the wall, they had in
Uh-huh.
big brass letters, it said, making friends is our business. And I
Oh,
thought,
wow.
that is the greatest motto I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And and I was in a meeting at which there was a guy who was he was a specialist in shopper marketing. He was the guy that could tell you chapter and verse about how people react when they're in the store, with merchandise. And he was making a pitch, and in his pitch, it was getting ever so slightly obvious that he was going to suggest shaking down store owners, kind of blackmailing them over the end
Yeah.
caps.
Yeah.
And August Bush III, who was known for being kind of a hardcore, hard driver, he
Yeah.
stopped the guy in mid sentence and said, this is what I'm hearing. What you're telling me doesn't sound like we're going to be making many friends. And I thought,
Uh,
oh, he believes it. Oh, man. And that really changed the way I felt about their advertising from that point on. I thought, no, that mission's for real. I don't know how it is now under Ambev, but
Yeah.
At the time, it was
Really,
a,
is he still around, Bush the third?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's interesting. I'd be I'm sure that guy's got some great stories as
Oh,
also.
can you, I mean, come on.
Come on.
He would
Yeah.
have the best. He was a very formidable man, the third. And the
Oh,
fourth was,
really?
yeah, the fourth was very handsome, very charming. But the third was very formidable. You know, you'd walk in and you weren't quite sure whether he was, you know, like an android taking your measure off some kind of laser beam.
Right.
He had these ice blue eyes, looked right through you. But not that I disliked him. I found him very intimidating. It was like you could be a 50-year-old man and walk into that room and he would be your father.
Yeah. Understood. Are there, do you have any other projects cooking right now in terms of social media or, just
Yeah.
in general?
Yeah, yeah. I've got quite a few little side hustles going on. Um,
Anything you could share with the audience?
yeah, I'm actually working on you might call it a kind of national tour. A
Really?
while back, I started getting these really super nice messages from people that would see my stuff on Instagram and on YouTube and on TikTok, and they would say, "Hey, if you're ever in Athens, Georgia, or if you're ever in Boca Raton, or you're ever in Cleveland," I get a lot of Ohioans saying, "Come out and
Really?
visit." Come out to Columbus and have a visit. And what they'll say is they'll go, "Hey, listen, if you're ever in town, I would love to buy you a coffee or a beer and we'll just shoot the breeze." And that really appealed to me. So I'm doing it. I often don't announce it because oh yeah,
You have a list.
yeah, I do. I really do.
Okay.
And what I would like people to do, if they have any interest in that, is if they go to nealfoard.com, and I
Yeah.
spell it weird, so I'll have to spell it for them. Nealfoard.
ARD, right.
Yeah, nealfoard.com. They can get on the mailing list and I'll send these periodic updates. Say I'm going to be in Scottsdale or I'm going to be in Reno and what often will happen is I have to be really careful about, trying to keep it down because I don't want to get embarrassed and there are like 20 people there and I don't have time for anybody. So
Yeah, right.
in any case,
I,
I got other things going, but that's my most fun thing. That's the thing where I really there's nothing quite as much fun as just shooting the breeze with a stranger who feels like they know you.
yeah, oh, for sure. For sure. That sounds like a very fun project. So you're actually going to be traveling to the Ohio and the Georgia,
Yeah.
Athens, Georgia, and
Yeah, I'm going up to Minneapolis actually in a couple of days and got a
now
lot of friends up there.
are you going to do city after city after city, or are you just going to try and divide it up by state or
Well,
region?
in a perfect world, the way that it would go, I've been trying to sort of see if I can scare up sponsorships.
Oh,
I'm going to see if I
nice.
can't, I'm going to see if I can't get Toyota. They don't know this yet, but I have a bunch of friends over there because I'm such a big believer in the brand.
Yeah,
I just love that brand. And
yeah.
my hope is that I can get them to supply a Toyota for the trip, and then for appropriate promotional consideration, that'll be sort of the vehicle and the
Absolutely.
gas bill. But yeah, it's just a really modest project.
That's
But
awesome.
just
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome. I see the comments on your videos and I mean they're all positive. So that's such a great feeling when you can connect and make that connection with someone and they
yeah.
can feel what you're saying and they understand your story. And the content that you're putting out is such a feel good story that that's what made me want to invite you on here.
Oh, I
And,
appreciate that.
and
Hey,
yeah,
I have to tell you one story that happened to a friend. This didn't happen to me, but he just told me about it. And I thought it was kind of amazing. What I like to do in all of my stories is I'm trying to just, as I said before, be the antidote to the kind of media negativity that seems intent on dividing us and putting us into little packages. And so
yeah.
whenever I hear something about somebody behaving in the kind of better angels, it just thrills me. And what happened was he was on a plane. He was flying through Salt Lake City onto I don't know, he was going to Newark or something. Okay, so but he's flying Delta going through to Salt Lake City. He
Yeah.
happens to strike up a conversation with an older gal sitting next to him, and then she involves this young couple off to her left across the aisle. They're going on their honeymoon, and
Oh
so
wow.
they're when we land in Salt Lake City, when he lands in Salt Lake City, they're going to have to transfer planes, and they're very nervous because the window of connection is quite slender. They're going to
Sure.
have to kind of hoof it when they get to
Yeah.
the airport to make their flight. I don't know where they're going, but it's someplace, they've really put together their money for this trip. And what do you know? But some douche canoe starts to complain up in
Oh God.
first class. You can see where this is headed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he puts his hands up and smacks one of these flight attendants. Well, I'm sorry, but you're off the plane. You
Oh
lay
yeah.
hands on a flight attendant, you are an unreliable passenger. You're a
You're
safety
done.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way that he tells me this is he says, they say, I'm sorry, sir, you're going to have to deplane. And the guy's doing the usual, why? What did I do? I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That thing. And the captain says, sir, you're going to have to get off this plane and we're going to get marshals aboard and you're going to,
Mm.
and what happens? This old gal gets up, goes up there, says, may I speak to him for just a second? And he says, they sort of, the flight attendant's like, what the hell? If it was some dude in a gi, it'd be one thing, but it's just a
Yeah.
sweet old one. She says, hello, I'm so sorry about this, but there is a young couple back here that have just gotten married and they're on their honeymoon. And if you take any more of this time, they're going to miss their flight. Now, I know all about these things because this happened to me. If they miss their connection, they're going to have to stay in Salt Lake City and they're not going to be able to get a room. And it's going to ruin their honeymoon.
Oh
Now,
wow.
please, would you please, for me, follow the instructions and you would just make my day. And this guy gets up and gets off the plane.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
here's the part of the story that always takes everybody by surprise when I tell, or when I heard it, which is this.
Yeah.
The good guy in that story is weirdly the douchebag. And here's why. Because he was not enough of a douche
Mm-hmm.
to double down. He was enough of a human being to listen to what she was saying and feel
Yeah.
bad enough.
Yeah.
She connected him back to his humanity. So
She did. She did. Yep.
if I
That's
was,
a great story.
yeah,
Great story. How long ago was that?
well, he just told me that. So I'm guessing it was like, spring break kind of.
Oh,
I don't know.
really? That's awesome. That's a great story. Um, what are your thoughts on future of TikTok, Instagram,
Yeah.
social media? Where do you see things going?
Well, the algorithm right now favors
Mm-hmm.
a certain kinds of content. But the best thing about TikTok, it sure would be a shame if they got banned. My suspicion is they'll work it out and they'll choose an
I
American. I
yeah,
mean, come on,
I agree. I
right?
agree. Yeah.
So, but I really do like TikTok. First of all, because it's a tremendous interface. It's really super easy to use, and the algorithm is fantastic. It will
Mm-hmm.
serve you up very interesting things for you. And the stuff I get on TikTok is usually incredibly informative and very reassuring. Because that's when you favorite it, that's what it serves you.
Right.
So that's what I like about it. I'm uh, my favorite venue is actually YouTube, although I have almost no following there. It's very hard to crack YouTube, but the
Yeah.
the cool thing about it is that it offers you the chance to do all kinds of other things like build a community
Yeah.
and and you can do long form and you can do short form, because they YouTube shorts and then they got the very long ones. And
Yeah.
and what's exquisite about YouTube is that you can do a podcast just like you're doing now. You can
Yeah.
film it and then post it to YouTube, and you get.
Right.
I think that's what Rogan does, and a series of other guys. And what this all represents to me is, excuse me, is that social media is truly. Let me rephrase that. That video social media, like TikTok, like YouTube, like podcasts, is a marvelous way to find your tribe
Yeah.
and
Agreed.
celebrate that tribe. And so it used to be that I was quite anti social media because for the most part it was all about, here's my fancy car, here, look at my cool vacation, look at the photoshopped images of me, and it was
Yeah.
all just a kind of way to sort of trigger envy, which is incredibly unhealthy.
I
And
agree.
what I'm noticing instead is that no, there's a big chunk of it that's instructional and helpful and sweet natured
Yeah.
and informative. I love the historians. I
They're
just love the
great.
historians. Do you know
Yeah.
Dan Carlin, Hardcore History? He's a
Wait,
podcaster.
I don't.
You
I'll
might,
I'll have I'll have to look at my Carlin.
yeah, exactly. Dan Carlin, this is, as I understand it, he goes without a script. This guy will do a 2.5 hour rant on Genghis Khan and the entire,
No kidding.
history of it. And it's just a rant and it's magnificent. But what it's a
Wow.
great indication of is someone like yourself, that's
Hmm.
building a fan base and bringing in the kind of content that they think is going to energize and inform and please their audience.
Right.
I just think it's the coolest thing ever. You don't
Yeah.
have to worry about gigantic production values. It's about
Yeah.
sincerity, authenticity, enjoyment, sharing. Um, you know, I think maybe the saddest thing in human existence is actually loneliness.
Yeah. I
That's
agree.
loneliness
Yeah.
is just awful.
It's
And
terrible.
if you find, but if you find your tribe on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or um, LinkedIn, even,
Hmm.
um, it's tremendously reassuring that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And I've had just the most magnificent lunches and beers with people that uh, I had some gal fly all the way out from Columbus just to have
Ohio
just to have breakfast, and it was
in
fantastic.
Palos Verdes.
Yeah,
Oh
she
my gosh, you're kidding me.
she flew out from Columbus, stayed a couple days, saw some friends, but she was really coming out because she just wanted to have breakfast. And so we had
She
this.
was not a stalker or anything,
No,
just
no, she was
normal. Not.
lovely. She was lovely. She was a magazine publisher. She was great.
Oh my gosh. So you guys had a lot to talk about. I'm sure you had a ton in common too.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the main thing was that what it reminded me of, and I know you
Yeah.
know this, is that human behavior, human attitudes, and so forth, they distribute on a bell curve.
Yeah.
And at one end, you'll find extremely empathic people, the Mother Teresa's of the world, who are perfectly willing to sacrifice themselves, the guys that throw themselves on hand grenades for their squad mates.
Yeah.
And then at the other side, you have sociopaths and psychopaths who are only too happy to lay off 4,000. Hey, can I do it? You got a 4,000 first? I'll be happy to. But most of us fall into the very, very large 76%
Hmm.
mostly in the middle.
Right.
And what that means is that we respond to romantic comedies the same way. We love action pictures the same way. You know, even I became a fan of NASCAR, and
Yeah.
I didn't start out that way.
Right.
And well, when you've got that much of humanity that is really attitudinally incredibly close,
Yeah.
um, it saddens me that anybody should be lonely, that you should feel as though half the world's out to get you,
I
or
agree.
that
Yeah.
you can't trust anybody, or that the people don't vote like you, or your enemies and so forth. I only use the politics just as an example, but
Sure. Yeah.
um,
That's such a great point, Neil. I've seen so many people since COVID, and I didn't really become a TikTok user until post COVID. I mean, I would say immediately May, June after everything went down. But once I became a user, I started interacting immediately with people on there, and genuinely, the majority of them were fantastic. Yeah, there was a couple trolls on there, but other
yeah,
than that, the majority of people I interacted with were amazing, and from all areas of the world. So
yeah,
yeah, just great stuff. I can't thank you enough for coming on today.
my pleasure.